How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the city of Fremont. This is now episode 13 of the series. In this episode, we'll be developing the city bus depot, since there isn't any public transportation in the entire city as of right now, which is causing a bit of traffic issues, but that's why we're building this. So, first things first is to not develop the bus depot, but to actually start construction of another I guess, little project to alleviate traffic in the city. So, first thing that I need to mention right off the bat is that there are a whole lot of trains that go through this city. And for those of you who haven't seen the other videos in this series, let me just get you up to date. So, basically, right through the center of the city, pretty much, there is a level crossing that has to cross two-way train tracks, so 4 tracks in total, and lots of traffic goes through that level crossing, both for vehicles and for trains. So there is always a constant, I guess, traffic jam, an eternal traffic jam at that crossing. So I decided to alleviate it by adding an additional crossing over the train tracks, this time not as a level crossing, but of course as an overpass. And not just any overpass, but it was going to be 6 lanes in total, so 2 3-lane one-way roads. Lots of numbers going on. So yeah, you can see me setting up right here, and it connects to this large avenue at the south side or north side. I actually don't know which side is north and which side is south. I'll just say south side for right now. The south side of the city has this large 6-lane avenue, so that's where this is going to connect to, and it'll also alleviate any traffic that goes on in this industrial sector, because now trucks don't have to exit through the tiny little 2-way roads and alleyways that lead to that avenue, and they can instead hitch a ride onto this large overpass. And there probably should have been better thought out ways to, cross the train tracks when I was developing the city. For some reason, I only had like 4, I think, crossings between the downtown area and the southern industrial section of the city. So, of course, as you can imagine, that led to a whole ordeal of problems that arise due to the sheer number of trucks and vehicles passing through there. And, of course, the tons of trains. When I first developed the city, I wasn't planning on having, 6 super long freight trains back to back going across the level crossing. So, that probably, not probably, it definitely added to the traffic issue. So I went ahead and devised this plan to build this overpass, and well, now you're seeing it being built on screen. Now the whole construction of the overpass is not shown. Well, I'm pretty sure I just cut it right there, and I think, yeah, this was just a cool little screenshot I got. Well, thought it looked cool with the train crossing right there. But that's the level crossing I was talking about. So you don't get to see me finish building the overpass due to lag issues. Like, it was so bad trying to use Move It and get the proper camera angle. I had to aim the camera right downtown, and for those of you who play this game, looking downtown is going to kill your frame rates depending on how big it is, and in my case it absolutely destroyed my frames. So I decided to cut the recording and just lower the graphics to pretty much the minimum that the game offers, to minimize the amount of lag, and then I completed it there off camera. But now, moving on with that, we are now on to the bus depot, which is completely right next to, why did I say that? It is adjacent to the train station. So, the bus depot, not super over the top, nothing too major. I went and did some research for various cities in the vicinity of this city, which is Greensboro, North Carolina. So I checked out the neighboring cities of High Point, Winston-Salem, and I checked their bus depots, and I came to the conclusion that, they're not super over the top. They're pretty simple. It's usually just maybe, let's see, four or five little platforms that the bus will pull up to. So I decided to get a fairly simple bus station, as you can see right there, or not bus station, bus depot, where they can all start and terminate their routes. And it turned out pretty nice in the end. It's not, again, like I've been saying, nothing too over the top, but it does its job, and the people in the city just flock to this thing like crazy. There's hundreds of people at the bus station, so clearly putting in public transportation, of course, who would have known, was a good idea. um, so yeah, just putting in some ploppable asphalt. I go ahead and I decorate this thing with curb props and, let's see, decals for pedestrian crossings to cross into all the different sections without, getting hit by a bus. You want to have properly labeled crosswalks to prevent that. That is usually a problem. But yeah, just putting in ploppable asphalt right now. You see me trying to smooth out these curves right here using these tiny little asphalt squares, which I probably shouldn't have done because of prop limit issues. But actually, now that I mentioned that, I did resolve some issues with the prop limit, and that is because I went ahead and, as a perfect City Skylines player, destroyed half of the stuff that you've already built. But I have good reason for it. So there was this neighborhood that had tons of grass props and fences and trash and decals, and I was not happy with it. So I went ahead and I went to the asset editor, created some assets that had all of those things, and as some of you may or may not know, when you edit an asset in the asset editor and you add props to it, it does not count towards the prop limit. So of course I went ahead and added tons of props to these houses, then destroyed them in the game, and then just zoned the area, and I had the houses develop themselves with the props that don't add to the prop limit, and it all just worked out perfectly. So yeah, I cut down, it was honestly like 15,000 props. It was ridiculous. I didn't think I had put down that many, but I cut down 15,000 props using that little technique, and yeah, I'm just now slightly further away from the prop limit. I'm surprised I managed to get so close so quickly. I was at like 55,000, I think, props for this whole series up until this point, so pretty crazy how I was able to cut it down by that much, but I wouldn't be surprised if I start approaching that fairly quickly. But getting sidetracked again, talking about props and whatnot, instead of talking about what's happening on screen. So, of course, I am putting down these curb props, like I said. The reason for me doing this is because instead of just using the little, I guess, concrete curbs that are, only a couple inches in thickness, I decided to, elevate the entire sidewalk area, which I think turned out beautifully. It looks exactly how I wanted it to. Because the station platforms where the pedestrians will stand waiting for the bus, those are elevated above the asphalt level. So I thought, why not just continue it and, make it part of the build that is, this entire section is elevated above the asphalt level. So that's what I went ahead and did that for. Putting in a fence right there to prevent people from wandering onto the train tracks. It's usually a problem you don't want to have to face. Trains are not something to play around with. They will kill you. Yes. So, again, putting in some more decals, putting in these little, I think they're panels, or are they slabs? The small ones are slabs. The big squares are called panels, I remember now. So putting in those little panel decals, those are all dotted across the front of the train station. So I decided to continue it and add them to that little back sidewalk right there. So when people exit the trains, they can head onto that little walkway and make their way to the bus depot. Now putting in all of these other tire decals and whatnot, because of course there's lots of traffic in this area, tons of buses, weighing several tons, just whipping in and out of that bus depot to get their passengers across the city. That's not even a joke. For some reason, the buses, instead of properly going in and out of the bus depot, because the bus depot has this little what is it, one-way roads that, you know, dictate which direction the bus is supposed to go. And for some reason, they decide to do a 180-degree turn at the platform and then rocket out and then just, you know, whip around that curve, and the bus just like leans all the way to this side. It's crazy. I'm sure there's a video of that in the closing cinematics. I'm sure I captured it. It's pretty hilarious when you look at it, but unfortunately a bit unrealistic, but that's just the AI, and I'm not sure how to fix that. So yeah, these were the curb props that I was talking about before. Didn't really like the way that they would have fit in for that specific section, so decided to, you know, get the elevated curb, sidewalk, whatever it's called, and it just looks so much better. Now just adding in these little triangle sort of line decals. This is for a, I'm not sure what this would be. I guess it wouldn't really be a maintenance yard. It's kind of just a holding area, I guess. So for buses that aren't, you know, in use, they kind of just park here, or I'm not sure. I just needed to fill in this empty space, and I didn't want to make it another parking lot. I didn't want to leave it an empty field. I wanted to utilize it, make it purposeful for the bus depot. So, I mean, it looks nice in the end. I think it does its job. It's just to hold 4 or 5, I think it's 4 of these buses that I got off the workshop, which look really nice, so much better than the game default buses. They just fit in so perfectly. They pretty much match the buses that are actually in Greensboro, so that's why I went and chose them. So yeah, just putting in these lines, I decided to add the lines in manually just to get them nice and you know, proper in length. Of course, that adds to the prop limit, but you know, sometimes you have to make sacrifices. So just putting in these lines right over here, and later on you'll see me start editing. I'll move on from the bus depot, and you'll see me start creating, recreating, I should say, a neighborhood in the just south of the downtown area, past the train tracks. That area has been under so much development since this series has started, and I think I finally have it down to how I want it to be. It looks so good. It is, I just really like it so much. It really, honestly, it's so reminiscent of how it actually looks in Greensboro. Some people might say it looks grungy, which I mean it is, but I mean when you see it, you'll understand. Like, it just fits perfectly. So, oh well, I guess we're just hard cutting it right there. Well, here is the construction of that thing that I was just talking about. So, you might also have noticed that I put in the brick sidewalks with the trees. I'm not sure if I showed that in a previous video. I think the last video that I showed that the camera ever came near this section of the city was the episode 10 city showcase, I think. And even then, I don't think it was, you know, the main street was as decorated as it was, you know, as it is here with the planters and the bricks and whatnot. But yeah, just I took out that one building to add this alleyway because, like I said, this whole area over here is going to be a little bit more grungy, a lot more industrial, a lot less, I guess, appealing to the eye. But I mean, that's how it is in real life, and this is supposed to be a realistic build. And you know, there are some things in this city that are unrealistic to how it is actually in Greensboro, but this isn't supposed to be an exact, you know, replica of that city. It's just supposed to be inspired. I guess quite heavily inspired, but inspired nonetheless. But yeah, I really like this area. This is probably one of my favorite areas in the city, surprisingly. But I guess once you see the finished result, you'll understand why. I spent a lot of time developing this, cross-referencing, I should say, between Google Maps and the game, and mapping it out on a little sheet of paper before I started construction. And it's great. I just really like the way it turns out. There's lots of parking involved, lots of empty plots of land that are full of trash and debris. It just looks great in the end. So you'll see that in the cinematics. Plenty of shots of those in the cinematics, I know. I spent quite a lot of time doing that. And you'll also see me doing this right here, adding the ore texture. So basically the default grass texture that comes with the map theme, it's a bit too green for my liking, you know, or at least in this specific area. Around the city in the, you know, treed off, in the forested areas, I should say, you know, it fits better there. But over here, like I said, it's more grungy, more industrial. So the grass here is, you know, not its healthiest. It's a bit gray, bit browned, bit dead. So that's why I went ahead and added that ore texture. And also something that I'm adding to the city, probably going to be a staple of the city from now on, is these generic trees. They're not the biggest trees, but my god, if they don't look great. They aren't so much affected by ground pollution, so they don't change color, which is always a good thing to have when trying to, you know, decorate an industrial area with trees and whatnot. So they look very realistic. They're low poly, and they don't seem to be affected by ground pollution and whatnot. Um, so that's why I went ahead and used them. They're pretty much all over the renovated parts of the city. And speaking of renovated parts, again, there also isn't any footage of this due to lag and also just me kind of doing it on my free time and then liking the result and just keeping it. So the industrial area, which I believe was developed in episode 3 or 4 of this series, that was months and months ago. I was not happy at all with the way it looked. Surprise, surprise, I'm not happy with my old builds when I first started the series. So I went back and completely deleted the entire area off the face of the map, and I reconstructed it. And again, like I said before, I was cross-referencing Google Maps and the game, I was mapping things out, and I finally got it down to where I am utterly, completely floored with the way it looks. It looks amazing. It is, I can't even describe it with words. It is exactly what I wanted for that industrial area. It is unkept. It is not, you know, concrete everywhere. There's lots of patches of grass, lots of overgrowth. It's exactly how it is in real life. So yeah, you'll see a lot of footage of that in the cinematics. No footage of it during the time-lapse construction process right now. But what you can see is me decorating this little parking spot with these fences, and unfortunately, for some reason, I only had the the right end of the fence and the fence post for the brick fence, or brick wall, I should say. And so that added, you know, a bit of troubles here and there, but I overall managed to fix it, and I added tons of these crack decals, pavement decals, stain decals, and just really ties the whole thing together. And then, of course, adding in all these random cars, lots of trash props, lots of the generic trees, stains, damaged asphalt, you name it, it's all in this area. This is probably one of the most detailed areas in the entire city. And I guess that's why I just like it so much. It looks great. But we are approaching the end of this video. We've got about a minute and a half of, actually no, we've got a minute and a half of time lapse left. So there's not a whole lot more to talk about. I'm pretty sure this section of me detailing this area of the city and the underpass, or not underpass, the overpass, I should say. I decorate under the overpass. I'm not sure if I recorded that either, but basically just lots of dirt, lots of grass, lots of rocks. It looks great in the end. Watching the trains pass underneath of it and having cars go over, I'm just so happy with this build. It just turned out great. I don't know. I don't know how to express myself any other way. And hopefully you guys are happy too, you know, watching these videos, seeing what comes of the build and whatnot, seeing what comes out of, you know, all the time and effort. And I may not upload, you know, super frequently, but when I do, it's because I just enjoyed it. I really do. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. I'll leave you guys here with some nice music and, of course, the closing cinematics. Take care.